Rachel is a woman with a difficult past. Life has not treated her well, and she has many problems. Among them, alcohol abuse and a great deal of aggressiveness when she is under its effects. Every day she boards the train at the same time, sits in the same place, and watches the houses as the train moves forward. Something about the lives of these people grants her a bit of peace amid the chaos in her mind. And on her way back in the evening, she repeats the same routine. But among 100 houses, one in particular stands out. A young couple lives there who seem to be very much in love. Rachel sees them every day and then spends the day at the train station, dreaming about their professions and how their relationship became so perfect. But these are all conjectures, since she has never interacted with these people. She only imagines herself being part of something similar, a relationship she was never able to have. Rachel's obsession with this couple is reaching a point of no return. Sometimes it seems like she wishes them the best, and at other times she sees herself replacing the young woman and living her life. We travel back in time exactly 6 months where we meet Megan, the young woman whose life Rachel envies so much, and we can see the other side of the coin. Megan's life turns out not to be as perfect as Rachel believes. She is trapped in a relationship with a violent man and regrets every day the path she took with him. During a session with her psychiatrist, Dr. Abdick, she tells him that Scott, her husband, got her a babysitting job almost a year ago, hoping she would grow fond of children and want to get pregnant, something he longs for. But that is not in Megan's plans. She doesn't like children at all and just wants to be herself. Later on, we meet Anna, Megan's boss, who seems to be a loving mother entirely devoted to her little daughter. Tired of her babysitting job, Megan decides to quit without telling Scott and leaves Anna with all the responsibility for her child. A few minutes later, her husband Tom arrives. It turns out he is Rachel's ex-husband, who has now started a new life away from Rachel's countless problems. Several weeks go by, and Rachel's dependence on alcohol grows daily. Her sister Kathy tries to get rid of every drop she can find to keep Rachel from harming herself further. Rachel constantly calls her ex and checks his social media where he shares moments with his new family. Moments that hurt her deeply. This is where we finally learn why Rachel and Tom's relationship didn't work out. It turns out she cannot have children, and after several failed attempts at insemination, nothing worked. The next morning, while Rachel is traveling on the train as usual, we see how her idea of the perfect couple is shattered when she sees Megan hugging another man on the balcony of her house. This new concern that the young woman is being unfaithful reminds Rachel of how her husband also cheated on her when they were together. Indeed, her husband Tom cheated on her with Anna for over a year following their attempts to get pregnant. After a few too many drinks, Rachel takes Megan's betrayal very personally and has a brief moment of uncontrollable rage. On her way back, she's completely drunk and hysterical. She gets off the train in front of Megan's house and starts running after her. A mysterious man follows her through the woods, but at some point, he loses sight of her. Rachel, who sees Megan jogging along a path, follows her to shout at her and vent her anger on her, but the scene goes black after a thud is heard. The next morning, Rachel wakes up in her bed with a head wound and covered in blood. She has no idea what happened. The excess alcohol has created a memory gap, but she has bruises and a terrible headache. More memories of her husband return to her mind, showing her acting hysterical and making scenes in front of his boss for drinking too much, which caused Tom to lose his job. After sinking into terrible sadness because she couldn't get pregnant, Rachel embarked on a journey of self-destruction for both her life and her marriage. Now she must reap what she has sown. A few days after the incident, the police show up at her house to question her about the disappearance of a young woman. The detective shows her a photo of Megan and questions her about what she did the previous Friday. This is how her sister finds out that Rachel was fired more than a year ago, and that during her episode of rage, she also broke into Tom's house and caused damage. In a flashback to 4 months earlier, we see Megan with her psychiatrist. She confesses that she regularly cheats on her husband. She doesn't care who the man is. She just wants to feel desired by everyone. A couple of weeks have passed since the incident. In a desperate attempt to find out if she had anything to do with Megan's disappearance, Rachel goes to see Scott to tell him about Megan's affair with the man on the balcony. Scott had his suspicions, and he shows her a photo of Megan's psychiatrist, Dr. Abdick. After rummaging through her memories a bit, Rachel recognizes him. Elsewhere, the police question Dr. Abdick about the disappearance, and Rachel seems pleased to know that perhaps he could be the culprit instead of her. Forced to cooperate with the investigation, Abdick reveals the information he has about Megan, and the police find out that Scott is a violent man. Thus, he becomes the prime suspect. Leaving Scott's house, Rachel sees Anna and recalls the blow she received the night of the incident. She is convinced Anna hit her and needs to talk to her about it. But Tom won't let her approach his family. Having tried all options to remember something about what happened, Rachel visits Dr. Abdick for a memory recovery session, but she does not mention that what she is trying to remember is what happened on the day Megan disappeared. Meanwhile, the police contact Scott with news that Megan was pregnant, something they discovered in Dr. Abdick's files. Very hurt by this news, he turns to Rachel to vent his feelings. In a flashback, we learn the reason Megan didn't want to have children. At 17, she gave birth to a baby girl, and while taking a bath with her, she fell asleep and the baby drowned in the tub. Rachel, on the other hand, continues to visit Dr. Abdick. In one session, she tells him how, in her drunken state, she went into Tom's house and took his newborn daughter, carried her around the yard, and then left her on the ground. In another scene, the police find Megan's body hidden in the woods, and the media accuse her husband of being the killer. Meanwhile, Scott is waiting for Rachel at his house to confront her for lying about the affair, as the autopsy results reveal that neither he nor the doctor is the baby's father. Since Scott is under investigation, the police have photos of him with Rachel and suspect that she and Scott are in a relationship and plan Megan's death to be together. Meanwhile, in the city, Rachel meets the man she saw the night of the incident. It turns out he only helped her up after she fell, and the idea that he followed her was just the product of her distorted mind. On the train back home, she sees Tom's former boss and goes over to apologize for the scandal she supposedly caused the last time they saw each other. The woman tells her there was no scandal at all. She never behaved badly, and the reason Tom was fired was for having sexual relations with various colleagues and being aggressive with customers. Now we see Tom's true colors. It turns out that he was always the violent one, and since Rachel couldn't remember anything because of her addiction, he blamed her for all the damage and mistreated her. At Tom's house, Anna finds a hidden cell phone on which she discovers dozens of messages showing her husband cheating on her with Megan. Convinced that she had nothing to do with Megan's death, Rachel returns to the spot where she lost consciousness and clearly remembers what happened. It turns out that she did see Megan and followed her into a park tunnel. After yelling at her, Megan got scared and got into a car. A few seconds later, Tom got out of that same car. Furious at Rachel's constant harassment, he thanks her sarcastically and then hits her with some keys, causing her to bleed. Having remembered everything, Rachel goes to Anna and tells her about her husband's affair with Megan. Tom appears, and Rachel accuses him of being a murderer. Now that both Anna and Rachel know the truth about what happened, the protagonist confronts her ex about all the time he kept her deceived, calling her hysterical while abusing her and blaming her for everything wrong in their relationship. Tom becomes enraged and attacks Rachel with a glass, causing her to lose consciousness. Meanwhile, we finally see what exactly happened between Megan and Tom. She tells him that she is pregnant and plans to have the baby. After arguing for a few minutes, Tom gets angry and pushes her, and Megan falls and hits her head on some rocks. Knowing there is no turning back from what he has just done, Tom approaches and kills Megan using a stone, then hides her body. When Rachel regains consciousness, she tries to escape, but Tom catches up with her and begins to strangle her. However, she manages to break free and run into the yard. Tom chases her and tries to stop her. Nevertheless, Anna, who has seen everything, comes up behind him and starts twisting a corkscrew into her husband's neck, sinking it as deeply as possible. After this, both women are arrested and taken to the police station for questioning. There at last, their stories make some sense, and they are released for acting in self-defense. A few months later, Rachel has recovered from her alcoholism, and now her train rides are not so grim as she travels longer distances and her life carries a new sense of hope.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.